Yo, yo, yo. Welcome, Promise of Victory family, to an online service we have for you this midweek. I hope this week has been a fantastic week so far, and I hope the rest of your week is even better than the beginning of your week. I hope you have an amazing rest of the week, and we can't wait to see you in church this weekend. We would like to do a few announcements for you. We have coming up the men's retreat. It is September 9th and 10th. That is a Friday. Let's check, make sure. Boom, Friday to Saturday. Overnight optional. There's a few slots in the cabin available. You can also bring a tent and throw it up. It is in Hookstown, Pennsylvania. There'll be burgers, cornhole, horseshoes. I do believe there's a gun range. There's fishing. There's a bunch of guys goofing off. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's in Hookstown, Pennsylvania at Ron Hall's house, Ron Hall's lake, Ron Hall's cabin, all that stuff he has there. He is graciously he is hosting and letting us come in there to hang out for the men's retreat. Listen, it is always fun. It's always a blast. You don't have to stay overnight with a bunch of sweaty, smelly men, although you can. Builds camaraderie, I suppose. I go camping quite often, so I know it does. You are more than welcome to come in for Friday. You're welcome to stay the night until Saturday. It's in Hookstown, Pennsylvania, September 9th and 10th, the men's retreat. September 17th, that is a Saturday, September 17th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We are having a prayer walk. That is where we're going to walk around the area praying. We're going to surround the community with prayer. And what better way to do that than to literally pray and walk, surround the community with prayer. It is going to be from 9 to 11. Meet here at the church Saturday, September 17th, probably a little bit before 9, so you can start walking from 9 to 11 on Saturday, September 17th, for the prayer walk. Another event we have coming up is the Audacity Youth Retreat. Now, it is downstate in southern West Virginia, in Fayetteville, at the New River Ranch. It is September 16th through the 18th. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I know the youth pastor at the church pretty well, and he's really excited about it. He says it's going to be awesome. So y'all need to go if you can. If you know of anybody between the ages of 13 and 18, this is going to be fun. This is going to be good, but also this is going to be a moment in which we all get something from God, and I firmly believe that. That is the Audacity Youth Retreat. That is September 16th, 17th, 18th. If you're interested, see the youth pastor. That's me. See him, talk about it, holla at your boy, and he'll let you know. The Audacity Youth Retreat, September 16th, 17th, 18th. Leaving Friday, coming back on Sunday. We also have something coming up, fast forwarding to the next month, not September, but October. At the end of October, October 29th, we are doing our trunk or treat. So if you would like to bring candy to donate to be part of that, bring candy. If you would like to show up and decorate your trunk to allow others to trick or treat from your trunk, then please come see the youth pastor. That's me again. And let us know that you would love to be a part of that. Last year was awesome. It's our first year doing it last year. Listen, last year we were able to talk to and say, hey, we love you and we would love for you to come be a part of what we have here to offer to people who would never set foot on our property in any other circumstance. We handed out, we had a trunk for the church, and we handed out flyers and little bitty flyers for the Christmas at the movies. And people came to that never would have heard of it outside of trunk or treat. And where better to get safe candy? This is trunk or treat at this right here in this location where we're going to do it at the Promise of Victory parking lot. That's going to be the safest bet for safe, untainted candy. There's not going to be anything in it. We are the ones handing it out. It is probably the safest place you can be that night. So listen, if you want to take your kids trick-or-treating, October 29th, show up 6 p.m. till upside down ? Whenever it's over. We're going to have fun. Listen, best decorated trunk gets a prize. We're going to have door prizes throughout the night. We're going to have music. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And we get to tell the community, hey, we love you. And also come check our church services out. Check us out. Christmas at the movies. Check it out. So we're excited for that. We're excited to do that again. That is October 29th, 6 p.m. until upside down ? Another one in October. This is a little earlier in October. October 9th. That is a Sunday. We get to honor our pastoral family for their anniversary. We are honoring them, and this is symbolic of the time that they first came to this church over 2 decades ago. That's right, 2 decades ago. and we want to honor them. Honor is the currency of heaven, and we want to shower love and honor on them. That is October 9th. Make sure you mark that on your calendar. Sunday, October 9th. That's going to be one fun service Sunday morning. All right, I hope everyone's jumped on by now, and we're just going to jump in and start with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray that you'll touch this time, touch this moment. You know who's going to watch this. You know who's going to watch it right now. You know who's going to watch it tomorrow. You know who's going to watch this in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. You know who is exactly going to watch this, and you know how much of it they're going to watch. Maybe they accidentally shut it off halfway through and never get back to it. Whatever it is that they watch, the part that they watch, God, let that be exactly what they need to hear. Not because of me, but because of your word doesn't return void. So God, I thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I've been really into lately, something that's been on my heart lately. But when we read the Bible, this is the Bible I read, okay? I love this. I love this version. It's the CEV, Contemporary English Version. I love this one. That's my favorite Bible I've ever had. When we read the Bible, it's easy for us to see God. It's easy for us to see God in the mix, in the midst, in the just there with everything all the time. It's easy for us to see it because we're looking back. It's retrospective for us. We're looking back. But for us, this stuff already happened. Except for the book of Acts. The Acts is, I've always been told the book of Acts is still being written. It's the Acts of the Apostles, which is us. We are, the apostles for God. We're spreading the gospel for God. We're his disciples. But other than that, and that's not going to be written in here, what's in here, all of what's in here, it's a story. It's already happened. A lot of the historical, biographical parts of the Bible, autobiographical for some, they come across as stories to us. Famous, when you say think of a story in the Bible, you think of the easy ones, the famous ones. Noah building the ark, proclaiming there's a flood coming when it had never rained before. Abraham walking Isaac up a hill and God miraculously supplying a ram. Joseph being sold into slavery, put in jail, only to rise to become the most powerful, one of the most powerful people on the planet at that time. Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt, all while being chased by the strongest army on earth. Joshua doing exactly what God told him to do, then watching Jericho crumble. Gideon's 300 men, David versus Goliath, Elijah versus Ahab and Jezebel, Esther saving her people. The list goes on and on and on and on and on of things we read that we already know. And in this list of famous stories, they're not stories, but we see them as stories. In this list of famous stories, we could add 2 stories. As a matter of fact, you can add more than that. But there's two that really jump out within the first few chapters, first 6 chapters actually, of Daniel. The first one we read about is in Daniel chapter 3. This chapter, Daniel chapter 3, is really unique in that it doesn't include Daniel. Daniel 3 doesn't include Daniel. What up? It's just about 3 young men named Hananiah, Mishael. I'm not a scholar when it comes to names like this. I can't tell you how to pronounce it. Hananiah, Mishael, that's how we'll say it, and Azariah, or better known by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. King Nebuchadnezzar, who there's a reason I'm about to say what I'm about to say. I get tongue-tied. Who we will refer to as King Nebi from this time on. King Nebi in Daniel 3 had a statue built, and it is a big one. He called for all the officials from top-tier management through mid-management, all the way to shift supervisors and seasonal key holders. Check off the reference to retail references. You're welcome. He then said to all his management, whatever level, peeps, hey, y'all going to hear some music here in a second. And when the beat drops, y'all going to bow down and worship this thing. Then the music dropped. It dropped the sickest beat you ever did hear. And everyone started bowing, much like the moment in Lion King when Rafiki, held up Simba to the kingdom right off of Pride Rock. And everyone, much like that, they all started bowing down. But eventually, there were 3 left standing. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They had the audacity to defy the king and his order and his command to bow down, which was announced to be punishable by death. They defied him in front of all the other leaders in the kingdom. So one of the most powerful men on earth at this time, he might not have been the most, but he was up there. Okay, he was up there. Very powerful man, most powerful in that kingdom, said, do this or die in front of all his management. And 3 of them say, nah, we're good. We don't need to bow. We bowed enough today. We don't need to bow anymore. They refused to bow. Old King Nebi, kudos to him. He gave him another chance. Hey, maybe they didn't understand. Back then, I don't know how they proclaimed things in a loud way. Maybe they had flyers. They didn't have Facebook. They didn't have texting. They didn't even have microphones. I'm sure they had some way of getting the information out. It's very technological. As a matter of fact, Babylon eventually built the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. I'm sure they had a way. Maybe, though, they didn't hear it. So King Nebi gave him a chance. Hey, maybe you didn't hear me, guys, but I said, y'all don't worship this thing. When the beat drops, I'm going to toss you in the fire. Old King Nebi, after they refused, had to follow through with his promise, and he had them thrown into the fiery furnace. On a side note, something I learned reading through this, just recently actually, in my grandma's house, she has a furnace. The furnace is on the ground. I don't know where it is down there, but there's a grate. There's a big grate, maybe this wide, and it's a big square, and it's grated out, right? So, like a hashtag before hashtags were hashtags, grated out. One of my uncles would always stand on it during Christmas, still does if we're there. When I picture furnace, when I hear furnace, I think of that furnace. The furnace wasn't a pit. I don't think they got lowered into it. This furnace, it's from what I've seen, pictures, renditions of it, in old pictures of archaeologists. It's more like a pizza oven. The big brick pizza oven. Hey, you want a slice? All right, let's put some stuff on. It's just a lot bigger, big enough for humans. They probably did it to help, bake their bricks, their building materials, all that. They also had it so they can throw people in there when they defy the king. I don't know why they. Anyway, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were forced to walk into the fire. While they were in there, King Nebi saw a 4th figure. God did the miraculous. They came out not even smelling like smoke. And a story that I love telling, my brother, my family, long story short, my parents had different ways of turning it on. My mom turned it up all the way, the propane to a grill. My dad turned it up halfway. Well, we didn't know that it was going to struggle to light. My mom had it cranked up the whole way, and it had recently just started struggling to light, and she still turned it up all the way, so that just propane's going. My brother couldn't get the lighter to light, or that couldn't click, one of the two. Eventually, they connected, and a big fireball came out, singed off like half his eyebrow. That was from a grill. These fellows walked into a furnace created to be 7 times hotter than normal, because that's what King Nebi said. Make it 7 times hotter, walk them in. And they didn't even, forget not being burnt. Not a hair was singed, the Bible says, but they didn't even smell like smoke. Miraculous move of God. They didn't come out smelling like smoke, let alone being harmed. King Nebi declared their God. Part of the problem King Nebi had the whole time was he never took God to be his own God. He said their God. Their God is a good God. And no one was allowed to say anything negative about their God. They didn't know for sure. Listen, they did not know for sure. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They did not know for sure that God would save them. They knew he could. They believed he would. But they said, this is what the Bible says, but even if he does not save us, we want you to know, Your Majesty, with all due respect, we want you to know, Your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. They had no guarantee, but they stood tall anyway. They were probably afraid. That's not in there. I'm going with logic here. They said, even if God does not say, that's them saying out loud, hey, he may not. This may be the day we die. They were probably a little afraid or a lot afraid, but they stood tall and didn't bow. This is the best way I can word it is their fear for God was bigger than their fear of death. They were probably afraid, but stood tall, didn't bow, and then God miraculously saved them. We read that as a story, and don't get me wrong, it is an awesome story. Another awesome story is likely the most famous one in Daniel. It's the one I first heard as a kid, and this is the one that I heard. Even though Daniel 3 happens before Daniel 6, this is probably the most famous story in Daniel. It's found in Daniel 6. The king had appointed 120 officials to rule the kingdom. And he had, this is not King Nebi, by the way, this is a different king. And he had 3 administrators run over the 120 officials, one of which was Daniel. Daniel was very good at his job. He was so good at his job, the king was going to set him up to rule everything. That's what the Bible says. The other 2 didn't like that. They didn't like Daniel. Daniel, this will preach all by itself. He did his job so well, and he wasn't corrupt. He had no skeletons hiding in his closet. They had to trick the king to take Daniel down. They couldn't just come up and say, hey, he did this wrong, he did this wrong, he didn't do anything. He did his job excellent. And he was so good at his job, they couldn't find fault in his job. That's a whole different thing that'll preach all by itself. They had to trick the king into making a new law. Laws then, they didn't have like a reversal law. A good example of that is in the book of Esther, the king of Persia at that point. That's a whole different thing, but it worked the same way. They made a law saying, hey, they tricked him. Haman tricked the king into saying there's a law saying everyone can kill the Jews on this date. Going back, Esther approached the king. That's the whole book of Esther. Listen, read the book of Esther. It is one of the most powerful things you'll read. I love that. Is one of my favorite. That is a top 5 favorite book in the Bible for me. I'm telling you, if you've never read Esther, read it. It's an easy, quick read. It is a quick read. Esther, she approached the king and said, I need you to save my people. She revealed that she is Jewish, said, please save my people. He couldn't make a law. He couldn't just undo the law he made. He had to make a law saying, well, the Jews they can now legally defend themselves. It was this law that they made was just like that one. The king can't say, you know what? I didn't mean that. Scratch that. That was badly worded. Once a law was said, that law is law. So they tricked the king into making a law that makes praying to anyone, any god, anything other than the king illegal, punishable by throwing those who defy this command into a pit of lions. Daniel heard about this law, but he didn't change a thing he did. Now, let me stop there for a second. He didn't go do something he hadn't done before to defy this law. They tricked the king into making this law because they knew what Daniel already did. Daniel didn't have to go out of his way to defy this law of not praying to God. He was already doing that. That was already in his routine. I feel like that's just an important little tidbit to add there. Daniel, he didn't change a thing he did. He prayed where he always prayed, when he always prayed, how he always prayed. They caught him, naturally, during their deep undercover sting operation with a well-placed stakeout and said, hey, Your Majesty, old Danny boy, he broke the law. Who could have saw that coming? Unfortunately, you said, yeah. The king, although he loved Daniel, we read about that in a second, we have proof of that here in a second, had to follow through with his law. He had Daniel put into a pit of lions. There was a stone rolled in front of the pit. Daniel was at the mercy of these lions to be kept there overnight. Daniel was at the mercy of these lions. The king could not sleep all night long because the thought of Daniel being stuck in the pit was too much for him. He had entertainers come. Nothing could keep him and help him fall asleep. The next morning, he quickly ran when he could. He ran to the pit the next morning, and Daniel said, hey, king, what's up, man? Yeah, still good. He said, Your Majesty, may you live forever. God saved me. Daniel came out of the pit without a single scratch, just like the fiery furnace. God performed the miraculous just like the fiery furnace. They didn't come out smelling like smoke. He didn't come out with a scratch. Just like these 3 young men, Daniel knows God can save him. Daniel believes God will save him, but he has no guarantee that God will save him. And he doesn't bow down. He has no guarantee, but he doesn't bow down. He bows to God. He doesn't bow to man. He bows to God. And God miraculously saves him. We read that story as well, and it's an awesome one. But the truth is, these weren't stories to them. They lived this out. And I will likely never be in a situation like that. They lived this out. They were forced to make a hard decision, a life or death decision, not knowing whether or not they would die a horrid death. And then there's us. We all think, well, that's what I would do. I would never bow down. I would never kowtow. I'd never submit. I'll never turn my back on God. Never! Peter said the same thing to Jesus. Even if I have to die with you. Peter said that. Then he goes on to deny Jesus, not once, not twice, but 3. He denies even knowing Jesus. Peter was a ride or die friend, a ride or die brother to Jesus. And he denies even knowing him. He denies being a friend of Jesus. A lot of us are more like Peter than we are Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, what we're saying right now isn't about Peter. So to fast forward in Peter's life, just to give you, because I feel like I just said that, and I said we're a lot like Peter here. There's hope still. Jesus, after conquering death and the grave by raising back to life, personally spoke to Peter. He personally restored Peter. That's grace and mercy. Even when we mess up, God's there. It's one thing to be a sinner. It's another thing to mess up. Peter messed up. But Jesus said, hey, I love you. And Jesus restored Peter. We look at Daniel in the pit of lions, the 3 young men in the fiery furnace, and we see us, we like to think it anyway, we would make that same choice. But let's go back to Daniel 1. In Daniel 1, we're reading about the first parts of the Babylonian exile. Way back from this point, after Solomon died, King Solomon, the 3rd king, there was Saul, David, Solomon. After Solomon died, I'm going to give you the very, very short version. Israel split in 2. The northern kingdom was called Israel, consisted of like 10 tribes. This is simplified here. The southern kingdom was called Judah, 2 tribes. After worshiping other gods and idols, Israel was eventually captured by Assyria. They worshiped other gods and idols, turned their back on God. God allowed, I like to think of it this way. God holds an umbrella, and when we serve God, when we worship God, when we don't let the other stuff in, we are under the umbrella. Yeah, a little bit of rain may hit us, but we are under the protection of God. When we step out from that umbrella, that's when all the other stuff really is on us. That's how I view it. I feel like that's fantastic. That's not mine. I stole it. It's mine. So the next time I say this, I'll say, as I've said before, it's like an umbrella. Israel stepped out from that umbrella. The northern kingdom, the 10 tribes, stepped out from that umbrella. Assyria captured them. Judah lasted a little longer than Israel. But the same thing happened. They worshiped other gods, idols. They walked away from God, and they were later captured by Babylon. That's where Daniel 1 starts. Daniel 1 starts here. All right, I'm going to do my best to read. I don't do well reading in front of others, but I feel like together we can do this. In the 3rd year that Jehoiakim, I'm not a big name guy, Jehoiakim was king of Judah, King Nebi of Babylonia attacked Jerusalem. The Lord let Nebi capture Jehoiakim and take away some of the things used in God's temple. And when he returned to Babylonia, he put these things in the temple of his own God. One day, the king ordered Ashpenaz, his highest palace official, to choose some young men from the royal family of Judah and from other leading Jewish families. The king said they must be healthy, handsome, smart, wise, educated, and fit to serve in the royal palace. Must be healthy, handsome, smart, wise, educated, and fit to serve in the royal palace. Lucky thing I wasn't there. They would have taken me first. Yeah. The king said they must be healthy, all that. Teach them how to speak and write our language, and give them the same food and wine that I am served. Train them for 3 years, and then they will become court officials. 4 of the young Jews chosen were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, all from the tribe of Judah. But the king's chief official gave them Babylonian names. Daniel became Belteshazzar, Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, and Azariah became Abednego. Daniel made up his mind to eat and drink only what God had approved for his people to eat. And he asked the king's chief official for permission not to eat the food and wine served in the royal palace. God had made the official friendly and kind to Daniel, but the man still told him, the king has decided what you must eat and drink, and I'm afraid he will kill me if you eat something else and end up looking worse than the other men. The king's official had put a guard in charge of Daniel and his three friends. So Daniel said to the guard, for the next 10 days, let us only have vegetables and water at mealtime. When the 10 days are up, compare how we look to the other young men and decide what to do with us. The guard agreed to what Daniel had asked. 10 days later, Daniel and his friends looked healthier and better than the young men who had been served food from the royal palace. After this, the guard let them eat vegetables instead of the rich food and wine. God made the four young men smart and wise. They read a lot of books and became well educated. Daniel could also tell the meaning of dreams and visions. At the end of this 3-year period set by King Nebi, his chief palace official brought all the young men to him. The king interviewed them and discovered that none of the others were as outstanding as Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they were given positions in the royal court. From then on, whenever the king asked for advice, he found their wisdom was 10 times better than that of any other advisor and magician. Daniel served there until the first year of King Cyrus. On a side note, I want to just offer this little bit of trivia if you're ever curious where it came from. Daniel said, we don't need to eat the meat from the royal palace, give us only vegetables. If you've ever participated in a Daniel fast, that's where that comes from. And you can thank Daniel in that moment of defiance for you if you've ever done the Daniel fast. Because I've done it a few times. I know it doesn't look it, but it ain't fun. We look at the fiery furnace, the pit of lions, as their own thing. And yes, they are their own thing. It's their own instance, okay? But this attitude of not bowing down started in Daniel 1. They were given the luxury of eating the best food, the best meats, the best everything, drinking the best drinks to live a lush life. Read books, study our stuff, train, and eat like royalty. But doing that would mean they have to break the law that was written down by Moses. It's the law of our people, the law that was written by Moses. The law being what Moses heard from God. To put it simply, the law is the first 5 books called the Bible. God told Moses to tell all of Israel, don't eat this or that because it's unclean. Instead, it wasn't a fun choice, I'm sure, to see all the stuff that they could eat and say, we don't want that. That looks gross. You ever talk to somebody that you know that they're lying to you about their, like, do you want that? Do you want to do? No, I don't want to do that. No, it doesn't even look fun. Fun choice for them to give up. Oh man, we're being told we have to do that. We need to submit and do what they did. Daniel, man, what are you doing? I can eat some steak. I can eat some pig for the first time in my life. This wasn't a fun choice. But they decided what everyone else is eating. They can't eat. They have to eat like the king. They were handpicked by Babylon because they were the best. The difference between them and everyone else, keep in mind, Babylon didn't just capture, they had a lot of other places. It wasn't just Israel. The difference between them and everyone else, they were set apart. They were God's people. They were called, created to be different. In a world expecting them to fit in, they were set apart. All of us were created to be set apart. But it's 100% up to us to act like we're better. I mean, Daniel even said, hey, check us out in 10 days, see if we're good. Not, hey, we're better than you and we know it. No, check us out. Just to see what you do. We don't got to tell everybody. Just let us do it on our own. Check us out. It's up to us to act like we all to us to act 100% up to us to not eat the food everyone else is eating. It's our choice. And if we can't say no to the smaller, not severely punishable things, actions, the not I'm going to be made fun of actions in a way or in a big way, if we can't say no to the small things, what makes us think, what makes me think I'd stand in defiance to the most powerful people in telling me I need to defy God. When my peer pressure's kicking in and I need to do something that's not godly. Work, with my family, my friends, whatever the case, at school, whatever the case may be. What makes us think we would stand in defiance to all the other pressure? We can't say no to the king's meat, to the royalty meat. I think we'd be different if we don't. What makes us think we'd stand in defiance to the most powerful people, just like these 4 men did, and not bow down if we can't do the other thing? It starts with the small things, like what are you eating? What are you putting into your life? What everyone else is doing, what everyone else is eating, what everyone else is drinking, what everyone else is watching, what everyone else is listening to, what everyone else is reading, what everyone else is saying, what everyone else is laughing at, talking about. We are all created to be set apart by God for God. It's 100% our choice. It's up to us to act set apart, to act like we follow Jesus, to act like we love Jesus, to act like we follow what God told us to do. My question isn't about what would we say when we're faced with the fiery furnace. What would we do when told about the pit of lions? But what do we do? What do I do? What do you do? What do we do when we're asked to eat like everyone else? What do we do when we're asked to do what everyone else does? That's not punishable. That's not going to make me look like I stand out. That's I don't want to make a big deal. What do we do when we're asked to eat like everyone else? Dear Heavenly Father, I pray that you'll touch us. We all come face to face. It's not as severe as fiery furnace. It's not as severe as the lion's den. But God, there are times in our lives that we have to choose whether to fit in or stand out, whether to bow down or stand up. God, there are times in our lives, all from childhood, from when peer pressure starts existing, from childhood until we take our last breath, we're going to do the small things right. Because if we can't do the things right, we can't say no to not bowing down to a statue if we're going to die. If we can't not eat the meat, we're not bowing down. Let us learn to do the small things, despite what people may think, they may say. God said, when the big things come, I can stand and not bow. God, I pray that you'll touch us. Give us that strength. Give us the wisdom to know when we're making that choice. That's the other thing, God. For them, it was blatant. It was obvious. Hey, you have a choice to make. For us, we don't know we're making a choice. Life just gets upon us. The emotions get we don't know it until after we've done it. Help us be wise enough to recognize it before it hits us. And God, give us the courage, give us the faith, give us what we need, the strength to not back, whether it's a small thing, big thing. God, we are called to be set apart. We're called to act like we belong to you. Help us be better at that. Help us be better at acting like we belong to you. Thank you for everything in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Promise of Victory family, thank you for tuning in today, checking out this week online service. We hope to see you Sunday coming up. Church is going to be awesome. It's always better when you're there. Love you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today.